Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MacKids School and Library Fall 2021 preview event. My name is Mary Van Aken. I am the Director of Publicity at Macmillan Children's Publishing Group, and I also oversee our school and library marketing efforts.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Luby, Marketing Manager on the School and Library team. So happy that you could join us all today.
Hi, I am Elise. I am the MacKids School and Library Marketing Coordinator, and I'm so excited to be buzzing about some awesome books with you today.
We are excited to give you an overview of our fall 2021 list of titles, including picture books, chapter books, middle grade and young adult titles from all of our imprints at MacKids. Our imprints include Feiwel Friends, Farrar Straus Giroux Books for Young Readers, Henry Holt Books for Young Readers, First Second, Roaring Brook Press, and Odd Dot.
And as you may have heard, we're also very excited to have some special guests with us today. We have Ariel Henley, author of A Face for Picasso, and we have Phil and Erin Stead joining us at the end of the event to exclusively preview Amos McGee Misses the Bus. But a few housekeeping notes before we begin. In the chat, you'll see a link for a full list of titles we're discussing today. In the digital review copy column for picture books and graphic novels, you can click through to see a digital review copy on issue. Please do not share these links as they are to be used for review purposes only. You can also see a link in the middle grade and young adult columns for a link to request on NetGalley. As we only have 1 hour to present, this is not our full list of titles, so subscribe to our MacKids School and Library newsletter to keep up to speed about all of our new and upcoming releases. Finally, if you're live tweeting today, please use #MacKidsPreview. So before we begin, the last thing I want to share is that we expect all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Elise to introduce our first special guest. Take it away, Elise.
Yes, I'm so excited. Today, I have the great pleasure of introducing Grace Kindle, Senior Editor at Farrar Straus Giroux Books for Young Readers, and Ariel Henley. Ariel is a writer from Northern California with a BA in English and Political Science from the University of Vermont. She is passionate about writing as a form of activism and hopes to use her story to promote mainstream inclusion for individuals with physical differences. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, The Atlantic, The Washington Post, and Narratively. A Face for Picasso is Ariel's debut novel, on sale November 2nd, 2021. Grace and Ariel are going to talk a little bit more about the book and answer some fun questions. Take it away, Grace and Ariel.
Thanks so much, Elise. It's so great to be here and be in front of you all despite being unable to see all of you. I can feel your presence. It's so wonderful to be together. And it's such a pleasure to be chatting, to be in conversation with Ariel Henley. We've been working on this book a long time, and it's been such an honor to be working with her on this debut memoir. So to get us started, Ariel, I thought we could maybe give us a line or two about the book if people aren't familiar. And then I'm curious, why did you decide to write this memoir? Was there a particular time in your life where you were like, I need to write a memoir? Or was it something that was kind of always within you that you were thinking of coming to at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hi. To start, again, I'm Ariel, and I am the author of A Face for Picasso, and I am super excited to be here. It means a lot. One, that I have the opportunity to tell my story and share my story with the world, but also that I get to talk about it today. So thank you. And yeah, that's a great question. I'll start by just kind of giving a little brief overview. A Face for Picasso is my memoir about my identical twin sister and I growing up with Crouzon syndrome, which is a craniofacial condition where the bones in the head fuse prematurely. So by the time we graduated from high school, we each had over like 60 surgical procedures to make our head and our face grow, since the bones didn't move on their own. So this memoir is basically about our experience growing up together and the nature of beauty and what it means to be a girl in a beauty obsessed society with a face that is different from everyone else is around us, and what that meant for our relationship, what that meant for us as individuals. So yeah, my desire to write a memoir really started in 7th grade. We had our first surgery when we were about 8 months old. But it was the operation that we had the summer before 7th grade that really, I don't know, changed how I viewed myself and understood my experiences, my role in the world, my place in the world, I should say. My sister and I had these surgeries before, but they basically advanced our face, advanced our head again, and completely changed what we look like. So to wake up from surgery and to be a stranger to myself, and also to not even recognize my twin sister, was a lot to go through. And so we spent the summer doing that. And then it was, okay, now go back to school. And so that was really, really a challenge, because she didn't even look like the same person, and neither did I. And we weren't the same people. So trying to process the repeated trauma that we experienced from these surgeries, and again, from having a facial difference, is really what led to me wanting to share my story. But there was always something in me that just felt like I had to write this. Like I never got to hear about any stories I related to. I never got to see anyone that looked like me in mainstream media. I didn't get to read books about people like me. I felt completely alone. And yeah, in some ways, I told myself, because I compartmentalized my experiences, and I told myself that I was just like everyone else. I was just another 12-year-old girl. But my sister and I had experiences that were drastically different from everyone else's. But we didn't process what we went through. We didn't even have the language to articulate what we went through. So again, like writing was the only time that I really could be honest about who I was, what we went through, how I felt about the harassment, the abuse, the bullying, how I felt about no longer looking like myself, how I felt about my family, and, you know, again, just all of it. I didn't need to sugarcoat anything. I could show up as my whole self on the page in a way that I wasn't allowed to in everyday life. And so as I got older, the idea of writing my book really became my way of coping. It allowed me to be brave. It gave me a sense of purpose outside of myself. I think especially as a woman, you know, and as women, we're taught that our worth is in what we look like. And so growing up, having to understand what my identity is, or at least try to figure it out completely away from my appearance, was tricky. And so when I was nervous for something, or I didn't want to go somewhere, or I was afraid of how someone was going to react to me if I did try something new, it made me really anxious and sad and scared. And so writing, and the idea of writing this book, really forced me to show up for my life when I didn't want to. And it was a line in my family of, well, it's something to go in the book. We can add it to the book, write about it for the book. And so I went away to college. I traveled to different countries. I fell in love. I made friends. I had all of these life experiences that really people didn't always expect me to have. So yeah, I don't know. Everything in my life always came back to writing this. And so I just didn't feel like I could move on until I wrote it. And I didn't want anyone else to feel alone the way that I did. So I don't know if that's kind of a long answer, but that's new, but I started in 7th grade kind of, so I don't know.
No, that's a beautiful answer. And when I first read this manuscript, you know, it does, you know, we do have that early scenes of your sort of toddlerhood, but the bulk of the manuscript, the bulk of the memoir takes place like from middle school through high school. And I do think of this as an all family read. I think there's something for everyone in this book, no matter what you're struggling with in terms of your appearance or your identity in the world. And I also love what you said about, you know, writing as a form of getting to know yourself and feeling brave and feeling like you have a space. And I think a lot of young readers in middle school and high school are really going to relate to your process. And I was wondering, you know, as part of the process, what was the hardest part of writing this memoir?
Yeah. You know, so much of my experiences were normalized growing up. It is not a typical experience to have 60 surgeries by the time you're 18. I know this now, but then it was just like, oh, okay, you know, I'll be back for surgery. And then I go back to school and I look different. And people are like, what? And I'm like, what? That's fine. Everything's fine. It's good. But unpacking all of those experiences really for the very first time was very hard. I cried every day. I went back to therapy, and my therapist made a joke that with all the writing and the research and the interviewing of my family and the revisions, with all of that I would basically been doing trauma therapy on my own for years. But overall, I would say that the hardest part of writing would be coming to terms with who I am, how I impacted the people around me when I was in pain. And I mean that both growing up and going through the surgeries and as an adult living in the aftermath of that trauma. And, you know, having to really take a look at how things affected me and what I didn't deal with and what I needed to deal with. Yeah, I don't know, all while still being judged by my appearance every day. It was like the trauma didn't end, you know, it
Right.
wasn't necessarily closing a chapter, but
Right.
basically, you know, I had to let go a lot of the anger towards others, towards myself, and just kind of learn how to give myself some compassion. So that
Oh my
was
God.
hard.
I love, yeah, no, it's so on point. You know, writing is an act of therapy and self-love. Well, speaking of self-love, were there any joyful points in writing the memoir?
Absolutely. It led to so many amazing conversations with family, friends, people I grew up with that I lost touch with, even being able to reconnect with people and mend relationships that maybe didn't end well, or that, you know, maybe we just grew apart because we didn't understand each other or where we were coming from. But yeah, being able to say thank you to people who got me through some really difficult times and some difficult situations was incredible. It gave me this really enormous sense of peace, and I'm grateful for that. I don't know that I necessarily expected it to do that much for me emotionally, and so I feel like in a lot of ways writing this book gave me a second chance, and definitely a chance to move on.
Awesome. Okay, last question because we're running out of time. When these great folks in the audience are, you know, handing your book to a new reader, sort of pulling it off their shelves and finding the right reader, or a whole class of readers, hopefully, what do you hope that these kids get out of your story?
Yeah, I hope my book helps to normalize facial differences. I hope it helps readers understand what it means to have a craniofacial condition. It's not gross, it's not scary, it's not sad. I hope it gives readers a better understanding of ableism and how prevalent and harmful it is. I also want readers just to basically know they're not alone. Sometimes life is hard and unfair. It's not your fault. The way people treat you is a reflection of them and not you, which is very easy to say and hard to learn. But yeah, I really want people to start thinking more critically about beauty and identity. Your face is not who you are. We're all so much more than what we look like, and being yourself and allowing other people to show up and take the space that they need to be themselves as well is really powerful. So yeah, this book is about beauty, yes, but more than that, I think it's about becoming, and it's about loving yourself and accepting yourself even when the world around you tells you not to. And so that's really what I hope readers take away.
Yes, Ariel, it's about becoming. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful book, guys. I hope you get a chance to get to it and let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Grace and Ariel. That was wonderful. I enjoyed listening. You talk about the book. All right, so next up, Grace and Ariel are just gonna zip off camera and I'm going to begin our book buzz. And first up, we have our young adult titles. So I'm so excited to preview those for you today. Very first on the list is So Many Beginnings, a Little Women remix. There have been a lot of Little Women remakes, but none of them have centered the presence of Black families in the Civil War era. In So Many Beginnings, best-selling author Bethany C. Morrow has taken the beloved tale of four sisters and reimagined it in a new setting, a colony of freed Blacks building their own community. Living as freed people is totally new to the Marsh sisters, and they must navigate sisterhood, heartbreak, and pursuing their dreams in a new world. This book covers themes of political and social activism, familial love, and the best part, the March women are able to voice their opinions and have influence in the world. It isn't just the romantic relationships at the forefront of the story, but the women's lives are also shaped in how they work to educate and support their colony of newly freed Black population. Though Black families have been left out of this narrative previously, in so many beginnings, the girls not only fall in love, but have dreams and goals pertaining to their careers and passions. And that's on sale September 7th, 2021. And next, we have A Clash of Steel. This is also part of our Remix Classic series. And it also comes out September 7th. This fall, we are launching this series, and this is going to continue into 2022. So we'll have authors from marginalized backgrounds take different classics and reinterpret them through their own unique cultural lens. The series will serve YA readers as both fun and engaging reads, but also a subversive overall look at what our society has deemed classic. So Treasure Island has been a staple in the young adult canon for over a century. Lambda Literary Award nominated author C.B. Lee shakes things up in A Clash of Steel by weaving in Chinese maritime history and cultural details. Is there a better way to introduce young readers to a fantastic tale of adventure than to include new and just as bold female leads? This take on Treasure Island will make the story more accessible for women and people of color. It takes place in the depths of the South China Sea, where we meet Zhang and An, two girls who learn that the legends they believe aren't only true, but dangerous. Despite what society wants to hold them to, Zhang and An are two outcasts that have learned their uniqueness so they can live in freedom. Full of heroic action, supportive friendships, and queerness, A Clash of Steel will be a brand new way to read and teach Treasure Island. All right, next up, we have The Hollow Heart by Marie Rutkowski. Intrigue, romance, and magic abound in The Hollow Heart, the heart-stopping conclusion to the Forgotten Gods duology by New York Times bestselling author Marie Rutkowski of the Winner's Trilogy. Picking up from the Midnight's Lie, heart-stopping cliffhanger ending, one of our heroines takes on the gods to save the girls she loves. Building on the intensity of their connection in the previous book, the stakes are even higher for our heroines as they find their way to each other against the odds. Taking place in a lush fantasy world in which gods walk among people and politics are complex as they are cutthroat, readers will fall in love with the world of The Hollow Heart. And with this beautiful and evocative prose and emotionally resonant characters, Marie's writing shines. For fans of Marie Lu, Tricia Levenseller, and Anna Marie McLemore. Okay, next up, we have Himawari House. So Himawari House pubs October 19th. You might recognize the art style of this graphic novel because the author-illustrator, Harmony Becker, is also the illustrator of George Takei's graphic novel, They Called Us the Enemy. This is a beautiful young adult graphic novel about 3 foreign exchange students and the pleasures and difficulties of adjusting to living in Japan. Now, Jung and Tina become fast friends through living together in the Himawari House in Tokyo and attend the same Japanese cram school. One came to Japan to reconnect with their Japanese heritage, while the others came to find freedom and their own paths. They all deal with language barriers, being a fish out of water, self-discovery, love, and family. This book covers immigration, its own voices, is born out of Harmony's, who's half Japanese and half American, desire to share the experience of learning her mother tongue in a country foreign to her. Now as Japanese American, Haejung is Korean and Tina is Singaporean. And the story includes Japanese and Korean language, and its masterful use of it brings the reader further into the foreign exchange experience. So that is Himawari House. There's some beautiful illustrations. I'm so excited for this one. Okay, next up we have Steel Striker by Marie Lu, and this comes out on September 28th. Explosive action and swoon-worthy suspense collide in this riveting conclusion to the Sky Hunter duology from #1 New York Times bestseller author Marie Lu. While the fate of the broken world hangs in the balance, Talon and Red must reunite the strikers and find their way back to each other in this smoldering sequel. Marie has established a devoted and massive fan base eager for her new series, and she's praised for how entertaining and thoughtful and thought-provoking her work is. In this series, Marie explores and invites readers to explore the many effects of violence and war and humanity's ability to harm and heal. Marie is a champion world builder, drawing in readers to her immersive and action-packed settings. The world of the Sky Hunter series is no exception. Sky Hunter was a New York Times and Publishers Weekly bestseller, hailed by reviewers as exciting and layered and fast-paced and brutal and engrossing. So we're very excited to see Steel Striker come out. Okay, next up we have Little Thieves, and this comes out October 5th. In this retelling of the classic Brothers Grimm tale, The Goose Girl, by Merciful Crow duology author Margaret Owen, a scrappy maid must outsmart both palace nobles and low gods. Loosely inspired by Bavaria and the Holy Roman Empire, this is a lavishly crafted world where low gods mingle with high society. Death and fortune are meddling godmothers, and scrappy pickpockets harbor magic and curses of their own. Margaret Owens recasts the classic Brothers Grimm tale, The Goose Girl, from the perspective of the wicked maid to explore the nuances of greed, deception, and class. Margaret Owen won critical raves and 2-star reviews for her ability to both entertain while exploring themes of power and privilege. With Little Thieves, Margaret introduces a new world and new cast, but with her same trademark wit, humor, and razor-sharp social observations. On top of being an acclaimed author, Margaret is also a talented artist, drawing a few full-page illustrations that will be included in the final version of Little Thieves. Okay, now we have Rise Up, and this is by Dr. Crystal Fleming. So Crystal's editor at Holt Books for young readers had long been a fan of hers when he approached her about writing a book about racism and anti-racism for teens. He knew about Crystal's scholarship and writing on white supremacy and envisioned a primer on the history and ongoing realities of racial oppression that would also highlight the work of organizations and advocates who have been working toward justice and equity for centuries. Crystal happily agreed to write a book for Holt, and that book became Rise Up: How You Can Join the Fight Against White Supremacy. Dr. Crystal Fleming, a professor of sociology and Africana studies at Stony Brook University, completed her PhD at Harvard and published scholarly research on racial oppression and anti-racism. She brings all of these scholarly insights to young audiences to inspire young readers to view themselves as change agents. In her own words, she says, "I think what's unique about Rise Up is that it presents youth with a very honest appraisal of our nation's history, as well as an in-depth understanding of white supremacy as a system of power. That structural understanding, which combines historical and sociological analysis, is really key to dismantling racial oppression. This book features in-depth research, and you'll find nearly 80 endnotes that give readers so many resources that they can use to sustain their anti-racism journey." And now we have Bad Girls Never Say Die. This is by Jennifer Mathieu. So Jennifer Mathieu is getting a lot of love still since her book Moxie just made its Netflix debut not too long ago. With hype created by Amy Poehler and Tina Fey at the Golden Globes, Moxie is telling girls everywhere that their stories matter. Her newest book, Bad Girls Never Say Die, is also full of teen and feminist empowerment. It's bound to be an instant hit too. Teens of today are very invested in playing an active role in social justice. They uplift others, making sure their voices and the voices of the oppressed are heard. With a cast of young women replacing the original boys, this is a retelling of The Outsiders that meets Pretty Little Liars. The strong female leads must come face to face with heavy issues like assault, bullying, and tragedy. In the story of unlikely friends, girls unite to protect each other and break down what they know about being good or bad. Drama, murder, secrets. Bad Girls Never Say Die is a story of redemption, loyalty, and female empowerment. Okay, now we have Daughters of a Dead Empire, and this comes out October 26th. It's been 100 years since the execution of Grand Duchess Anastasia, But the fascination with her story and the subsequent rumors of her survival live on. From the classic 1997 animated movie to the recent Broadway musical, this book is perfect for every young reader who has ever been fascinated by her story. Where most stories about the Romanov family take a very romantic view of Imperial Russia, Daughters of a Dead Empire pulls in voices of the poor men and women who are most often overlooked. Evgenia is a young communist who's tired of working hard for nothing, while people like Anna live the good life, and she's not afraid to let her grievance be heard. Anna and Evgenia couldn't be more different, but readers won't be able to resist the way that the reluctant partnership between these girls across class lines strengthens into a friendship that they would take on the world for. Daughters of a Dead Empire is Carolyn Tara O'Neill's debut novel, and she's landed on an irresistible story. Her frank prose and detailed characterizations are sure to capture the minds of young readers. So super excited for this debut. And next we have a Gilded. So Marissa is the queen of fairy tale retellings, and it just makes sense that she would be on board for our classic retellings collection. Her massive fan base will be excited to see her return to the fairy tale world that made her so popular, and we're sure that she'll be turning even more teens into readers with this one. In Gilded, an interpretation of Rumpelstiltskin, a poor miller's daughter is cursed by the god of lies, and she develops a talent for telling tall tales. Serilda's fantastical stories draw the attention of the king, who threatens to kill her for her lies unless she can spin straw into gold. Not knowing where to turn, she enlists the help of a boy who isn't interested in love, so he thanks. But first, there's a curse to be broken if they want the king's tyranny to end. This dark tale has ghouls and phantoms, a courageous duo, and a castle full of secrets, and you can find it out on November 2nd. And now we have The Big Reveal by Jen Larson, and this comes out December 7th. This is a dazzling YA novel about a girl who isn't afraid to be big and sexy and dance her heart out, and a discussion-provoking exploration of the mixed messages our society gives young women about their bodies and sexuality. Addie is fat, fierce, and fearsome. Loving and passionate, terrified but doing it anyway, readers will be rooting for her every step of the way as she decides to put on a top-secret burlesque show to raise money to enroll in the dance academy of her dreams. When people find out about the show, she is soon slut-shamed and fat-shamed, but Addie decides to chase her passion anyway and stays true to herself. This book is Dumplin' meets a body-positive dash of fame and a feminist message about the line between personal choice and the pitfalls of patriarchy. Jen wrote the book she needed when she was young, a book still needed today, and I will definitely be reading this one. And that is it for the young adult titles.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to talk about our middle grade titles today, starting with one of my most highly anticipated books coming this summer. Readers can't get enough of the New York Times bestselling Friends series by Shannon, Hale, and LeUyen, Pham, and neither can we. This graphic memoir series follows the real-life Shannon Hale through the trials and tribulations of growing up. In Friends Forever, the third book in the series following real friends and best friends, Shannon is now in 8th grade and life is more complicated than ever. Everything keeps changing. Her classmates are starting to date each other and nobody seems to want to date her. And no matter how hard she tries, Shannon can never seem to just be happy. I'm sure we can all identify with that feeling. As she works through her insecurities and undiagnosed depression, she worries about disappointing everyone who cares about her. This is another incredibly relatable story from Shannon and Wynn, exploring feelings I think we can all relate to. And through their signature humor, warmth, and insight, they've crafted another incredible love letter to their younger selves and to readers everywhere, a reminder to us all that we are just enough the way that we are. Next, we're excited to share the English edition of Latinitas was released in February of this year, and we're excited to announce we have a Spanish edition coming in August. Author and illustrator Juliet Menéndez was inspired to write this book while she was working as a bilingual teacher in New York City's public schools. Juliet noted that the posters of the historical white men in her school did not represent the children in her classrooms, and so she began to research Latinx historical figures. And as she researched, she realized that while there was a lot of information available about famous historical men, there was a real lack of representation about famous and influential Latinas throughout history. And so Latinitas was born. This book pairs 40 beautiful hand-painted illustrations with a short biography on each inspiring Latinita. From Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor to singer Selena Quintanilla Perez to NASA's first virtual reality engineer Evelyn Marias, this is a book for aspiring artists, scientists, activists, and more. Fans of Newbery Honor Book, Scary Stories for Young Foxes, rejoice. We have a brand new standalone companion by Christian Mckay Heidioker, Scary Stories for Young Foxes, The City. In the first book, readers were introduced to two fox kits who get separated from their litters and experience unspeakable terrors in the darkness of the forests and fields. This new book follows three new fox kits as they attempt to survive a frighteningly new environment, the city. These 8 interconnected stories are compulsively readable and perfect for young horror fans. Christian layers his chilling stories with real facts about foxes and also explores deeper themes like urban industrialization, humanity's impact on the natural world, and what animals must do to survive in modern times. This book also features more seriously creepy spot art by Junyi, who you'll recognize from the first book. And we definitely recommend that you read this book with the lights on. If you were scared by the first book, this second book is even scarier. Next, very excited to share that beloved New York Times bestselling author Katherine Applegate has a new book, and she says you can best describe her new book WILLODEEN through the epigraph she chose for the book, which is a short quote from a speech by Greta Thunberg. I've learned you are never too small to make a difference, which is such an important message to share with our kids. This is a fascinating fantasy story about climate activism starring 11-year-old WILLODEEN, who is a young animal lover, and she's part Greta Thunberg meets Jane Goodall. WILLODEEN's village has lately been impacted by natural disasters like fires, mudslides, and droughts, and the annual migration of hummingbirds has also been impacted. And you can see the adorable hummingbird on the cover here. It's like a bear with little wings. They're like monarch butterflies that come to WILLODEEN's town every year to build their bubble nests above the blue willow trees. But this year, not a single hummingbird has migrated, and no one knows why. This is an eco-mystery filled with STEM concepts like biodiversity and species interdependence. But this big-hearted story is also classic Katherine Applegate. It explores themes of finding the courage to speak your mind and cherishing your friendships. Next, in Other Boys, debut author Damian Alexander delivers a moving middle grade graphic novel about his struggles with bullying, the death of his mother, and coming out. Damian's family doesn't look like your classic TV family. His mother is dead, his father has left, and he's being raised by his grandparents in a low-income household. And Damian does things that other boys aren't supposed to do, like play with Barbies instead of G.I. Joe. And now Damian is about to begin 7th grade at a new school, and he has a foolproof plan to avoid the bullying he has experienced his whole life. He's going to stop talking completely. So starting on the first day of school, he doesn't say a word, but it doesn't work. Even without saying anything, his classmates can tell Damian is different. He has been teased his entire life for being different, especially by the other boys. But if boys can be so cruel, then why does Damian have a crush on one? Damian's colorful art and distinctive voice will draw readers into this moving and relatable story. And this book will speak to anyone who has ever felt too different from others, and especially to those young queer readers who are still discovering themselves and learning to find their voice. This story will show them they aren't alone. Next, best-selling author Sarah Albee reimagines 25 classic fairy tales with a STEM twist in fairy tale science. Each fairy tale starts with a retelling of the classic story, and then readers are invited to explore the science behind the story by conducting experiments. For instance, this book asks the question, can a glass slipper really hold a person's weight? Can you really feel a pea under a mattress? Or which poison put Snow White to sleep? Kids will need to complete experiments to figure out the answers, and all of the experiments are safe to be conducted by kids at home or in the classroom. This book perfectly illustrates the learning through play philosophy behind all the books published by our imprint Odd Dot. These books encourage curiosity and reinforce core concepts through hands-on learning, and this is the perfect way to sneak in some STEM concepts. Speaking of great nonfiction, Steve Shankin. I'm sure you all know and love him. He is a 3-time National Book Award finalist, a 2-time winner of the Boston Globe Horn Book Award, a Newbery Honor recipient, a Cybert Award medalist, a winner of several YASA Awards for excellence in nonfiction, and he was last year's Margaret A. Edwards Award winner, just to name a few. He has been called the master of narrative nonfiction, and his newest book is no exception. Fallout is the incredible follow-up to Steve's 2013 Newbery Honor book, Bomb, the true story of the creation of the atomic bomb and the beginning of the Cold War. In Fallout, Steve takes readers on a terrifying journey through the Cold War as the US and the Soviet Union compete to build more destructive bombs and conquer the space race, deploying spies and undercover agents, finally culminating in the Cuban Missile Crisis and almost igniting a third World War. Steve is known for writing edge of your seats accounts, and they read like spy thrillers. They don't read like nonfiction. So they're the perfect books to hand to any readers who think history is boring. History buffs will also love it, and older readers who may want to brush up on these historical events will find this page-turning story completely fascinating. And speaking of fascinating nonfiction, in Black Hole Chasers, award-winning investigative journalist Anna Crowley-Redding presents the riveting true story of how the Event Horizon Telescope team captured the first ever image of a supermassive black hole, one of the biggest scientific breakthroughs of our lifetime. This breakthrough took years of hard work, innovative thinking, and a level of global cooperation never seen before. It seemed to be an almost impossible task. It required technology that didn't even exist yet, and a telescope that was as big as the Earth itself. This account was based on Anna's extensive research and hours of interviews with many of the groundbreaking scientists, physicists, and mathematicians on the team, some of whom had never granted interviews before. And Anna also breaks down the sometimes complicated science in this book into very easily understandable language. This is a captivating and inspiring story of human curiosity and triumph, illustrating how people around the world can come together to accomplish great things. Next, Carnegie Medal nominee and New York Times bestselling author Megan Shepherd crafts a harrowing story about a girl and her dog in Dog Star, a story based on true history. Nina is a lonely young girl living in Moscow whose father works for the Soviet space program, and Laika is a stray dog from the streets who is selected and trained to be sent into orbit. When the two meet in the laboratory, a friendship blooms between them that will soon be tested by shocking secrets and hard truths. While Nina is a fictional character, Laika was actually a real Soviet space dog who was the first animal to orbit the Earth. Little was known about the real Laika, but this novel serves as a tribute to her. This is a lush historical adventure about the unbreakable bonds of friendship between a girl and her dog, as well as a compelling historical fiction for fans of Eugene Yelchin and Anna Martin. This book includes an author's note and back matter providing more information about the historical Laika and facts about the space race. Next, Adriana Cuevas, you may know her because she received her 2021 Pura Prey honor for her magical middle grade debut this year, The Total Eclipse of Nestor Lopez. And we're thrilled to already have a new book to look forward to from Adriana, Cuba in My Pocket, which is a much more personal story for her. It's actually it's based on the story of her father's own journey to the United States from Cuba in the 1960s. This fictionalized story is set in 1961 after the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, which solidified Castro's power in Cuba. 12-year-old Kumba's family makes the difficult decision to send him to Florida alone, and life in the United States presents a whole new set of challenges for Kumba as he navigates a new city and a new way of life. With just the right balance of humor and heartache, this is a powerful story about the immigration experience, Kumba's feelings of isolation, homesickness, and uncertainty in an unfamiliar place, as well as the hostility he sometimes encounters in his adopted homes, are as relevant today as they were in the 1960s. A Newbery Honor winner Margarita Engel says, Cuba in My Pocket is an authentic and moving portrayal of tragic era in Cuban history told with empathy and hope. And actually, if you're interested in hearing from Adriana about this book, she was our guest speaker at our spring 2021 preview. You can find a link to that recording site. it was such very middle grade. Had a family is just perfect for fans of Holly Black and Neil Gaiman. Mirabella's family is unusual. Her uncle can transform into a ferocious grizzly bear, and her aunt's body is made entirely of spiders. The humans who live in the village of Brookhaven view their family as a threat, so long ago they reached a treaty. The monsters won't eat the townspeople, and an invisible wall was set around their manor to keep strangers out and protect their family. But when two orphans stumble upon a door that was meant to stay locked, Mirabelle and her family realize they are in grave danger because they are discovered by another monster, and he has a hunger for their kind. This story is at turns chilling and thought-provoking. The Monsters of Brookhaven explores difference and empathy through the eyes of characters you won't soon forget. This gorgeous cover was stunningly illustrated by Edward Bettison. It's one of my favorite covers of the year. And the book also includes over 20 pieces of interior art like the one you see here that will blow readers away. Spoiler alert, The Monsters of Brookhaven ends on a thrilling cliffhanger that teases new secrets that will be revealed in the sequel coming next year. And speaking of scary middle grade, I don't think you could ask for a better blurb for a book about ghouls than a quote from R.L. Stine himself, who says, "Don't miss this book. It takes you to another world and then terrifies you with surprise after surprise. Great ghoulish fun." And I personally couldn't agree more. Jake Burt is a 5th grade teacher whose previous standalone works, including Greetings from Witness Protection, have been incredibly popular with readers. And in this action-packed mystery, The Ghoul of Windy Down Vale, Copper Innskeep is keeping Windy Down Vale's deepest and darkest secret. He is the ghoul that haunts the Vale, wearing a terrifying costume to scare travelers and townsfolk away from the dangers of the surrounding swamps. But when a terrified girl claims she and her father were attacked by a creature, one that was definitely not Copper in disguise, it threatens not just Copper's secret, but the fate of all of Windy Down. This is ghoulish fun for mystery lovers and for readers who want more gentle thrills and chills. Next up, in January of this year, we published Gone to the Woods, a middle grade memoir by Gary Paulson, the legendary author of Hatchet. It is a thrill to be publishing a new standalone work of fiction by Gary in How to Train Your Dad. You may recognize this cover art as the work of the one and only Dan Santat, and in this case, you can definitely judge a book by its cover because this story is just that good. It's actually based on Gary's relationship with his own son. It's a laugh-out-loud eco-adventure about 12-year-old Carl, who is struggling with his free-thinking dad's offbeat habits. His dad may be brilliant, but dumpster diving for food, searching trash for salvageable junk, and wearing clothes from garage sales is getting old. Carl is worried about what his schoolmates, especially a certain girl at school, might think about his dad. So Carl decides to retrain his dad using a puppy training pamphlet, which leads to some unintentional and hilarious results. This is a fierce and funny novel about family, green living, and a young boy's heartfelt determination to help his father come to terms with his growing independence. And librarians, mark your calendars now because readers can look forward to a 3rd new book from Gary Paulson. North Wind will be coming in January 2022. And finally, Alina Chow is an award-winning filmmaker and artist. Her creative vision is strongly influenced by her Chinese and Indonesian upbringing. As a child, she grew up in Hong Kong, and she was always fascinated by her grandmother's stories, her colorful sarongs, and delicate wooden sculptures brought back from Southeast Asia. The aroma of Indonesian food still brings back loving memories of sitting next to grandma and drawing while grandma prepares spices from scratch. And Marshmallow and Jordan is a graphic novel inspired by those wonderful memories that she shared with her grandmother. This graphic novel gracefully combines a sensitive story about a child with a disability and a riveting sports drama. When Jordan becomes paralyzed by the waist down after an accident, her days as a star player for her school's basketball team come to an end. She's still the team captain, but her competition days seem to be behind her, until an encounter with a mysterious elephant who she names Marshmallow helps Jordan discover a new sport. Water polo could be a way for Jordan to continue her athletic dreams, but it could also come between Jordan and her best friends on the basketball team. And with the big tournament right around the corner, Marshmallow is hiding a secret. This is a heartwarming story accompanied by beautiful watercolor artwork by Alina. And we have so many of our popular and best-selling series are continuing this fall. This includes Daniel Krause's chilling Teddy saga, Elena K. Arnold's adorable Starla Jean series, Aaron Reynolds' hilarious Fart Quest series, a new Investigators novel, science comics, a new fairy tale reimagining from Melissa De La Cruz in the Never After series, and so many more. This fall is just jam-packed with books. I wish I had time to talk about them all. Plus, you can also find digital arcs for even more middle grade books available on our NetGalley page, including How to Be Brave, Horse Trouble, and Bounce Back. And if you're looking for the best books of the year so far, we have a roundup of starred reviews available on our website, MacKidsSchoolAndLibrary.com. 2 titles that cannot be missed this year are Race to the Bottom of the Earth, a riveting nonfiction middle grade read, and Gone to the Woods, the moving middle grade memoir by Gary Paulson that I mentioned earlier. Both have 4-starred reviews and are absolute must reads. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Mary to talk about our picture book titles.
Thank you, Kristen, for those great buzz presentations. Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk about picture books today, some of my favorite books to work on. And I'm going to start with Brains, Not Just a Zombie Snack by Stacey McNulty, illustrated by Matthew Rivera. You're probably very familiar with Stacey from her Genius Our Universe series, including Earth, My First 4.54 Billion Years on Earth, and Mars, Earthlings Welcomed. She's distinguished herself as an absolute pro at combining educational content and humor, and that is very true of Brains, Not Just a Zombie Snack. So I'm going to show a few spreads of art here that I think just perfectly capture this. It's the first in a series that focus on the science of the body. And I love this opening spread here because we're introduced to our zombie guide to the human brain, who assures readers, don't worry, I'm going to eat your brain. I'm not going to eat your brain. I gave that up hours ago. What follows is a highly entertaining and extremely informative look into the human brain. We learn all sorts of fascinating facts, and it's something you're definitely going to want to, really take your time with and enjoy every one of the facts. And she wraps everything up with a spread of back matter that includes even more facts about brains and resources for continued learning. So the next book we have up is I Eat Poop by Mark Pett. When Mark's editor shared this book for the first time, all of us had the same reaction. Gross, please put that first instinct aside here, because what's within this book is anything but gross. It's a charming picture book about a dung beetle who, yes, does eat poop, but who also wants nothing more to fit in with the other bugs at school, which means he can absolutely not eat poop in front of them. I'm so sorry. It looks like some of my spreads are not showing up properly. I will make sure that's fixed in our recording. So when the inevitable happens and his friends discover what's in his lunch, it's with the help of Herman the housefly that everyone discovers that what it is that makes them special. I love Herman, his friend, delivers a great line that says, if I let those pests ruin my life, I'd be miserable. So in addition to this great reminder of what makes us different, that makes us magical, there's also a lot of really fun bug facts for kids to pore over. So this is my favorite slide in the whole book, where other bugs share something about themselves that make them different. To quote the text, it turned out the whole school was full of weirdos. Some of my favorite quotes here are from the ladybug. My mom eats her own eggs sometimes. Just brilliant. Before I move on, I also just want to point out that the gray end papers here have even more fun facts about bugs. Next up, we have Nikki Nakayama, A Chef's Tale in 13 Bites by Debbie Machiko Florence and Jamie Michalak, illustrated by Yuko Jones. This is really, excellent nonfiction. It's a nonfiction biography of Nikki Nakayama, one of the very few female chefs of color to be nominated for the list of best 100 chefs worldwide. In just 13 bites, Debbie and Jamie detail Nikki's hunger for success, from wonton wrappers to chewy mochi to her own upscale Los Angeles kaiseki restaurant, Naka. To anyone who tells her a woman can't be a master chef, Nikki lets her food do the talking. A smart, strong woman with star power, Nikki is only just getting started. The book wraps up with a timeline of Nikki's rise to fame and a recipe for wonton pizza that I can highly recommend. Author Jamie Michalak interviewed Nikki and had the pleasure of eating at her restaurant when writing this book together with Debbie. and Debbie infused so much of the story with her own family heritage. She wanted to write a book that depicted the joy of being Japanese American and a contemporary story of growing up in the United States. She hopes that Asian children will feel seen and proud to be Asian when reading the book. We're really excited to share Nikki's story with readers everywhere this fall. Next up, we have Rosie the Riveter, the legacy of an American icon. So here's a historical figure that you'll probably recognize immediately. In Rosie the Riveter, author Sarah Dvorak connects all of the dots to poetically show how this symbol has evolved to inspire generations of women to make space for themselves and to make history. While we're all familiar with the iconic poster created in 1942, what young readers may not know is that Rosie was also a song, a movie, and ultimately a movement. The book details the many ways Rosie has stood as a symbol for female empowerment across decades. Like a rivet, she's the linchpin that is holding so much of this history together, which is detailed in extensive back matter to give readers more context on this story. Next up, we have Happy Diwali by Sanyukta Mathur and Courtney Pippin-Mathur, illustrated by Courtney. Celebrating Diwali was one of author Sanyukta's favorite memories growing up in Delhi, India. Her mother would cook for family and her family would celebrate with visiting friends. When her family moved to the US, they kept up the celebrations, and now she does the same thing with her own family. Happy Diwali is her first children's book, and she co-wrote it with her sister-in-law, Courtney, to share this Hindu festival of lights with readers. The book follows a family preparing for and then celebrating Diwali. Engaging back matter includes a recipe for mango lassis, a glossary of Hindi terms, and substantive information about the meaning of each tradition. Next up, we have We Can, Portraits of Power. At just 14 years old, Tyler Gordon is the youngest author on our list, but don't let his age fool you. At just 14, Tyler's art has already been featured on Good Morning America, ABC News, Essence, and the cover of Time magazine. In 2020, he was awarded the Global Prodigy Award. We feel incredibly honored to be working with Tyler on his debut picture book. The inception of We Can, Portraits of Power was a portrait Tyler painted of Kamala Harris that went viral after he posted it to social media. He received a call from the vice president herself, and soon after, his art was everywhere. His debut features his bold paintings of 30 icons: musicians, artists, writers, civil rights leaders, sports legends, change makers, record setters, and more, alongside short explanations of how these people inspire him. If you are attending School Library Journal's Picture Book Palooza event this summer, you'll have an opportunity to see Tyler speak during the morning keynote. Next, we have Awake by Mags de Roma, available October 12th. This fresh, suspenseful, and ultimately empowering picture book creeped its way into all of our hearts at Macmillan. We follow a little girl throughout the night as she faces her and my biggest fear, the giant, hairy, beastly spider that's lurking in the corner of her room. I'm going to do something a little bit unconventional here and read a few pages to you. In a big, big city on a busy city street, there is a pretty tall building. At the tippity top of that building is the bedroom. One night, after a story, a snuggle, and one last sip of water, Oscar and I were getting so sleepy when, out of the corner of my eye, spider. I was not so sleepy anymore. I was awake. I wanted you to get a sense of both this incredible cut paper artwork that feels so unique and intriguing and the rhythm of the text, which just begs to be read aloud. What really brought this home for us is the different take on girl power. Watching this powerful young woman dream up a million ways to solve her problem will surely help other readers think big. I also just love that this end page about the ultimate tool for fighting spiders: an empty glass, some cardboard, and a very kind heart. Next up, we have Pinky Promises, and I'm thrilled to present Elizabeth Warren's debut picture book, illustrated by Charlene Chua. This is an empowering story inspired by the pinky promises that were a hallmark of Senator Warren's time in public office. Pinky Promise is a story of a girl named Polly who knows she's strong and capable, but whenever she offers to help her uncle or brother or neighbor, They laugh and tell her that's not what girls do. Then one day, Polly's mother takes her to a rally to meet a woman who's running for president. Polly and the candidate make a pinky promise to remember all of the things that girls can do, and she carries that back to her school, onto the soccer field, and even into an election for class president. Senator Warren says the pinky promises she's made with thousands of girls will stay with her forever. And this book will be a reminder about the strength that she wants to instill in even the youngest of readers. Why? A conversation about race. So Taye Diggs and Shane Evans have collaborated on several best-selling picture books, but this is their most personal yet. This is a book to add to your classroom or public library this fall to help open conversations about race at the youngest reading levels. The book begins with a sequence of questions and answers and allows plenty of room for processing. The spreads of children asking questions of their caretakers are followed by a single word, "Oh." And this really reinforces the time it takes to process these realities. It then grows into more of a conversation between young and old, further demonstrating how conversation is so essential to understanding a long history of racism in this country. Shane Evans is the winner of the NAACP Award, the Coretta Scott King Award, and his art really shines in this valuable addition to library shelves. He and Taye have been best friends since childhood, and their close relationship is reflected in the seamless marriage of word and arts. So this really is the perfect book to give to any reader who's asking why. Wild and Peace, the title is Wild Peace, and Wild and Peace might seem like two concepts that do not jive, but I promise you they do, in this luscious lyrical book about finding solace in the natural world by Irene Latham. You'll probably recognize Irene as the author of The Catman of Aleppo, a 2021 Caldecott Honor book. And this story follows a little girl who escapes her world filled with noise and fury by quite literally stepping into her drawing of nature and into the natural world. Some of the spreads, beautifully illustrated by Il Sung Na, are filled with actions, while others are quieter, but every page brings home how healing nature can be for a busy mind. Share this book next fall and then bring it out again for Poetry Month in April. Next up, Loving Kindness. Deborah Underwood is the author of many celebrated books for children, including the New York Times bestseller, The Quiet Book, and a recent favorite of mine, Bernard's book. And she has a way of writing books that grow in an unexpected way. That's very true of Loving Kindness. In the first few pages, you might think you're reading about a book about a caregiver's love for a child and the beauty of being exactly as you are. But by halfway through the book, you know Deborah is doing something much more here. She's connecting that kindness that we should show to ourselves with the kindness we should share with others and with our earth that connects us all. She does it so seamlessly that it just feels like the most natural thing in the world to understand how interconnected we all are and how we can move through this interconnectedness with kindness. As always, Tim Hopgood's art is vibrant and colorful, and that's certainly the case here. This book is perfect for sharing at story time or any time. So last, before I finally get to our special guests, is African Proverbs for All Ages. This is our first picture book collaboration with Oprah Books, written by Jonetta Betch-Cole and Nelda Latif. It's a book about the power of proverbs and how they evolve over time. Author and noted educator and anthropologist, Dr. Jonetta Cole, has culled proverbs from various cultures of Africa and wherever possible has credited proverbs with their culture of origin. Dr. Cole feels strongly that proverbs can, in her words, stir our soul and spark our imagination, and this book will do just that by inviting children to explore and reflect on complex notions about relationships, identity, and society through proverbs. So before I invite Phil and Erin, I'm just going to share, we have a few series continuing, including Ben Hackey's Julia's House series, which will conclude with Julia's House Goes Home, and a new book in the Roxy, The Last Unisaurus Rex series by Eva Chen. We also have so many books, picture books out this year that are notable for many reasons, and Stars are one of them. These are some of our most starred reviewed titles of the year, including Yes and No by Elijah Cooper, that received the elusive 5-star reviews, and so many more. So now, without further ado, Kristen, would you like to introduce our special guests?
Yes, of course. I am thrilled to introduce our special guests, the Steads, to you today. Phil C. Stead and Erin E. Stead are the author and illustrator of the beloved Caldecott Medal winner, A Sick Day for Amos McGee, and several other books for young readers. It's hard to believe, but 2021 marks the 10-year anniversary of their Caldecott Medal win. And what better way to celebrate than with a brand new story featuring Amos McGee and all of his friends. Amos McGee Misses the Bus will be available on bookshelves everywhere in November 2021. And after the event concludes, you will receive a link to read the full digital arc of the story, and we know you are going to love this new story just as much as you did their first. It's a beautiful story about kindness and friendship, and I will let Phil and Erin tell you a little bit more about it. So Erin and Phil, welcome and take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Ooh, our screen just changed.
Yeah, so Erin is actually quite a novice at these Zoom things. So she's not as practiced at talking to an empty computer screen, but I've had a little bit of practice, so hopefully I can help get us through this. Thinking about how we're going to talk about this book today, I actually thought I'd start by talking about the original book, A Sick Day for Amos McGee. Erin and I started work on Amos McGee 14 years ago, which is really hard for me to believe that it's been that long. But when we began work on this book, it was our first book that we'd ever done together. It was my second book that I had ever made. And I think both of us really thought that it might be our last book. And if it was going to be our last book, that we should really just make something that we were very happy with, that we could make for each other. And that sentiment is actually reflected right on the very first page of the book in the dedication. It's really small, you probably can't see it, but Erin and I actually dedicated the book to each other. It says Phil dedicates this book to Erin, who dedicates this book to Phil. We made a little circle that goes around and around. And that was how we felt about this book, that it was something that was just for the two of us and very few people would be likely to see it. Our publisher and our editor at Roaring Brook felt much the same way. He really loved the book. Our dog is saying hello. He really loved the book, but he also thought that it was going to be a book that fit a very niche audience, that wouldn't necessarily be very popular and would probably have a very short little lifetime. That's not what happened. The book was published. It was a book about quiet and kindness, and it was published at a time when there weren't a lot of other books that necessarily were like that or looked like it. And the book was just a lot more successful than any of us really had dreamed that it ever could be. Because of its success, there was some thought amongst us that maybe we should do a second book. But Erin and I were both very, very hesitant at first to expand on the world of Amos McGee. We were so scared to ruin the world of Amos for anybody that really loved Amos McGee and loved the world that in which he lived.
And honestly, I still am. I think that we worked really hard on this second one to try to expand the world without stepping on anyone's experience of the first book. We came at it knowing, I think, how heavy the task was. So we tried.
I asked Erin a few minutes ago, what did she think was the hardest part of making the second Amos book? And after she kind of listed a few things that had been difficult, she said, actually, the thing that was the most difficult was just constant anxiety. So it was the anxiety of possibly ruining the world of Amos. It was also the anxiety of living through a pandemic and trying to parent a young child while we were making a book and trying to find hope and joy while we were making a book. And yeah, so it was a difficult book to make. But honestly, the first book was also a very, very difficult book to make. So in a way, it was a really similar experience, even though we had been living in the world of Amos together for over 10 years. Making a new one was no easier than making the first one. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And in some ways it was a little bit harder. But I, at the same time, felt so happy. I think one of the things that we're missing, that we're not saying, is that we really wanted to live in the world of the first Amos book again. And that was what drove us to do the second one. It wasn't any pressure from anybody or any thought that we should make it. It was that we wanted to, it had been 10 years and we wanted to play with these friends again. And so we wanted to draw them again. And that was the idea. So we thought, oh, okay, we'll try it. and then kind of went, because it was very difficult. But I hope you like it. I hope you like the new one. I think you'll see it soon. Mary, if you want to show any spreads, you certainly can.
Yeah,
right now.
We're not able to see the screen that you can see right now.
We're just
Oh,
gabbing
here we
here. Okay, so so you'll notice that some of the art and some of the places that you're in are going to be a very familiar setting, so that we can all put our sweaters back on and feel comfortable again. But what happens here is that our friend Amos is pretty rigid. He enjoys a routine, and one day it kind of goes wrong. So
yeah, it goes wrong because he was trying to do a nice thing for his friends. His routine gets a little bit mixed up, and then without knowing it, his friends have been looking after him all along. And much in the case of the first book, everything sort of ends up.
It ends up okay.
It ends up okay. Yeah. And really what we wanted most of all was an excuse to draw all the animals, and Amos McGee in particular, in beachwear. So this book ends at the beach, which is something that I had hoped to do for many years. And I hope in the future that we can put Amos in similarly festive clothing.
Outfits. I would like to see snow, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to say to everyone is that if anybody, this is unfortunately for you guys, this is the first time we're talking about this book, which means that this is the worst time we're talking about this book. We don't really know how people want us to talk about it, or or what people are interested in about why we made it or how we made it. So if you would like to ask us, what we were thinking about doing is, Phil and I, we have an Instagram together, which is
at number 5 bus,
yeah.
The number 5. Erin also has her Instagram, which is at Erin Stead.
They both have a post right now about this book. And if you want to write questions in the comments, we'll do our best over the next couple of months before the book comes out to answer them in any fun post or way that we can. I'm not great at social media. It's not a thing that I'm good at, but we can try.
Yeah, just be patient with us, because like a lot of you probably watching today, we've got a small child at home now who likes to command our attention and would prefer that we not be looking at our phones. But we'll do our best to answer any questions that come in. And I think that's it. I think we've used up all our time. So thank you so much. We can't wait for Amos McGee to make it back out into the world. And we hope that you will be kind to him when he does. All right. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Erin and Phil, thank you so much. That was a wonderful book talk. You would never know it was the first time that you're talking about the book. We're getting so many chats that they want to live in the world of Amos McGee, so we could just listen to you talk about Amos all day. And I love the beachwear, just in time for summer, and they'll get to read that story. So thank you both for joining us, and please do leave some questions for Erin and Phil on their Instagram. We put the link to their Instagram in the chat. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
Yes, and thank you all for joining us for this preview. I know we went a little bit over time, but I'm sure it was so worth it to get that early look. I particularly love all of the beachwear that the animals are wearing. So take a close look at that when we send you the digital review copy. And then finally, just a reminder that we will distribute a recording of this event afterwards. It will have captions, and we'll send around that handout again as well. Looking forward to seeing you all at an upcoming virtual conference, and hopefully before long in person on conference show floors. We miss all of you. Thank you all.
And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and keep in touch. Our contact information was on the screen earlier. Please feel free to send us an email. We're always happy to talk about books. And take care. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.